Adam Taxin now talking to Jim Hoft, aka the Gateway Pundit, who you can see on Twitter at, I believe, at Gateway Pundit, and whose website is thegatewaypundit.com. And I find it very essential for my digest of what news stories. I mean, I like Drudge Report too, but Drudge doesn't really have a sense of timing on the front page in terms of chronologically. So those are the two I basically go to. I've gotten to know Jim. I met him in person a few weeks ago when I was in St. Louis. And the reason I'm talking to him today, though I probably could have found a lot of people to fit this role, is because he's a big fan of the movie Groundhog Day. It is February 2nd right now, February 2nd, 2017. And Jim is just going to join me now. It's not what he usually does or what people know him for sure. But, like, why Groundhog Day is a great movie. Jim, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Adam. Great to be with you. Yep.
So you, like so much of the rest of the world, are a big Groundhog Day fan.
Right. And today is February 2nd, and so we're all reminded of this movie. Although it's been a few decades old, it's still a classic. It was interesting looking over a couple articles on it before I came on, and just what an impact it's had on culture and society and even religion. This one article from the New York Times quoted several religious leaders from Hindu and Judaism and Christianity who felt like the lessons from Groundhog Day was impactful, and that they felt like they could use those lessons in their sermons. So funny that this Hollywood spoof would have such an impact on culture even years later.
I wonder, the movie makes me wonder, and actually, by the way, let me just cite the New York Times article, which you can Google. It's Alex Kaczynski, and I believe it's called Groundhog Almighty. But I just remember the movie sort of came out, and I figured Bill Murray, it's kind of funny. I don't think I even saw it in the theaters. But, it makes me wonder, who can predict what movies really become the classics that people talk about years later? And which ones don't. I mean, I certainly had no sense when it came out, or even the first time I saw it on video, that this would be one that people just keep talking about as such a big part of the culture. I figure what won the Academy Award around then? Dances with Wolves? No one talks about that now.
Truly. And I think, too, it's because the message, we see it all in our everyday lives. We see it in our country. We see it in relations between relations between businesses, peoples, organizations, and the fact that if you continue to do things in a similar way, you get similar results, and that's what was played out in this movie. I think today, I was just thinking about this and thought about. Here we have a totally different change agent in office in the presidency today, who's blowing everything up. He's certainly not the type of person that we would expect to be president, but I'm certainly a fan of Donald Trump, and he's changing the way things have been done. He's looking outside the box. And I think we're going to get different results than what we've seen in the past, where the middle class, of course, in America has been decimated after years of Obama and previous administrations. I think Trump, we finally have somebody who's going to care for the people and make the changes necessary, and not just go along to get along and think outside the box. So that we have some different results in this country. So we'll see.
And, of course, Groundhog Day does take place in my home state, and the state that put Donald Trump over the top on Election Day, that would be Pennsylvania. But more profoundly, I do think of, obviously it's a big change in the government, and the movie's also really about incremental steps that the Bill Murray character named Phil Connors, made. But you get the sense that Trump probably wouldn't admit it publicly, but he's someone who's tweaked with the way he did things, and he certainly gave evidence of it during the presidential campaign of, I can do this better. And having gone to so many rallies covering it for RSBN, I saw the difference in him when he started sticking to the teleprompter, which I think most people said made him more successful as a candidate. Just little steps like that, and people say, he's a changed person in a lot of ways. So maybe the lesson is there. I'm curious, by the way, if he's a fan of the film at all.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you're absolutely right, though. He tried a lot of different things out during the election. A lot of times he would test something out with his crowd before he actually, he'd ask the crowd who he thinks would be a good running mate, different things like that. And, so he was somebody who tested things out before he changed. He was a little more cautious than people, reported. They wanted to make him look just as this radical, crazy man, and actually much more cautious. It certainly has brought results in his private life with his business dealings, and I expect that he's going to be one of the certainly one of the greatest business presidents we've had, maybe in history.
Yeah, well, we don't have that many who have experience in business, though we have plenty who were not really a typical political route, mostly military people, though I guess Herbert Hoover had and Woodrow Wilson had fairly unusual paths to the presidency. Bringing it back to the movie, I guess we have enough to include this on my Trump Nation channel, and who knows if Trump's even a fan of the movie or if he's even seen it. But is it the kind of thing where, are you like a lot of people and say, if I could have only tweaked my personal life or things in my life this way at this time, I would have loved to have the opportunity to go back again?
I think we all do that to some degree. I know there's been times in my life that I had a change in course. I think for myself, just I did things the same way for several years. I was in the corporate life. It was adequate. It paid my bills. It wasn't very fulfilling. I really found when I started blogging and doing things a few differently, taking incremental steps, that I really found something I love, and that's my writing at the Gateway Pundit. So I think we all have moments in our life where we're at a crossroads and we have to choose, and I'm sure all of us have some regrets, but hopefully we've made the right decisions at times too to straighten out our lives.
And one thing I want to point out to people is you're based in the St. Louis area, and there is a connection between St. Louis and the movie. Harold Ramis, who was behind the movie and who's worked with Bill Murray on at least 6 movies, 5 of which were very good. I don't know if I could put Ghostbusters 2 in that category. But he did he went to Washington University for college, and he had his first job, which he said actually was very helpful for his later career in comedy. His first job was in the St. Louis area working in a mental hospital, ironically enough.
Wow.
Yeah, so there is a connection to the Gateway here, which you may not have been aware of.
Yeah, he's absolutely phenomenal, though. The guy's a genius. So I didn't know that about him, but that's a very interesting fact.
It's a shame he passed away 4 years ago, at an early life, but I think he definitely evolved and really had some profound insights in his latter movies. He's someone who really looked at the way he lived his life and made changes. With the second marriage, he left Hollywood and just lived in a Chicago suburb to be close to his parents. So he is someone who the message of the movie was true to, or was, who actually lived that way in his own life from everything I've heard. I've never met him.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Finally, I think the most important thing we could do right now is do a sort of public service announcement for people who haven't seen the movie to make them feel really badly about themselves so that they are motivated to rent the movie. Can you help me out with that a little bit, Jim?
I'm sorry, Sonny and Cher, do you want the radio song?
No. I mean, tell people why they have to see this movie. I mean, if they haven't gotten the impression right now.
Yeah, I think it's a classic. I think people need to go out and see it, and I think we can apply it to our everyday lives, and I think it will be a classic for years to come.
All right. Jim Hoft, Gateway Pundit, thank you for talking with me today.
All right, Adam.